So I've just recorded my post-fight review of Callum Smith versus Eric Scotland. By the time this video goes up on the channel, that post-fight review will also be uploaded, so please check that out. It's after the Smith-Scotland fight, and we're still waiting on Billy Joe to come out on Box Nation, so just thought I'd use this time to make a quick video to discuss some of the undercard fights. Let's start with Daniel Dubois versus AJ Carter. Daniel Dubois took out AJ Carter inside, I don't know how long it was, it felt like inside a minute. Absolutely destroyed AJ Carter, dropped him 3 times. The third knockdown was a horrific knockout. It was an ice cold knockout. He caught AJ Carter absolutely flush with a right hand cross, and Carter was horribly knocked out. It looked like a real dangerous one, and I think AJ Carter needs to consider his future in the sport after that, because it wasn't so long ago AJ Carter was getting clean knocked out by Kamil Sokolowski, and if his punch resistance is as such that he's getting knocked out by a journeyman, and now he's being kind of brought in as an opponent to a guy like Dubois, who's a prospect at the start of his career, and he's getting knocked out in under a minute, it could be very, very, very detrimental to his health if he continues in this fashion. Dubois, very, very impressive. Timing was on point. Jab was on point. The cross was on point. A really, really likeable performance. He is clearly very, very heavy-handed. Even at the level he's fighting at, you can see he's very, very heavy-handed. And he's the Southern Area champion, aged, 19, 20 years old, 5 fights in. Now, I think because he's just won the Southern Area title, people are already thinking the next logical step for him is English title or British title. I'd keep him well away from those sort of fights. I'd specifically keep him away from the likes of Nathan Gorman, who he was linked with. I'd keep him well away from those sort of fights for the time being. There's no need to rush him at all. What Dubois really needs is rounds. You wouldn't want his first time to go rounds to be the first time he faces a capable opponent. You'd want him to have experience of rounds at a sort of lesser level, so he's not thrown to the wolves. He's clearly a very, very big, heavy-set guy. He's clearly a very big puncher, and you always wonder with fighters like that what they will be like if they have to go 5 or 6 rounds, and if they have to get hit back, and if their stamina's tested. So I'd like to see him face durable journeyman. There's a lot of talk on Twitter that he should face Kamil Sokolowski, the journeyman who knocked out AJ Carter. I think that's a very sensible fight. He's a highly durable guy. He would give Dubois excellent experience and take him rounds, and I think that's exactly what Dubois needs, so he can work on his trade, he can learn some tricks, and he can be in a fight where his power isn't the only answer. Steve Bunce saying that Daniel Dubois is the hardest puncher in Great Britain, probably the hardest puncher in the world. You know what, I'm not so sure. That AJ Carter, you'd have to say there's quite a few heavyweights in Britain who'd have probably stopped him in similar fashion. I think to be saying that Daniel Dubois is the hardest puncher in the world off the back of that is slightly questionable. The hype is in. There's always hype around big punching heavyweights. We've seen this several times. We've seen it with Joshua, Price, etc. I remember Barry Hearn saying no heavyweight in the world could possibly go 3 rounds with Anthony Joshua. Joshua's turned out to be a world champion and probably the best heavyweight in the world. But what I'm getting at is when you step up to a certain level, you do go in with heavyweights who can move, who can defend, who can take a shot, and then you need to have more to your game than raw punching power. So that test will come to Dubois all in good time. I'd just like to see him tested with durable opponents. I'd like to see him get that experience, not get rushed, and go into fights where he actually learns something, because I think that's the key, is that education in his boxing. But no doubt a blue chip prospect, a highly, highly exciting guy to watch, and a guy whose career we look forward to seeing how it progresses, definitely. Anthony Yarde, who fought Norbert Nemasapati. I think Nemasapati retired after 3 rounds. Took an absolute beating. Looked like it maybe stopped at the end of the first round. Yarde was able to score, I think it was 2 knockdowns in the second round, and really it was kind of like a glorified sparring session. Yarde came out, took it at quite an easy pace, didn't look to get him out of there in the first 10 seconds, used his jab, used his distance, and then started to put punches together and started to close down the range. And when he was doing that, Nemesis had very, very little left. To be fair to the opponent, he took his licks, he got up and he fought on through knockdowns that many opponents would have quit from. So I give him credit for that. Yarde, like Daniel Dubois, I use the phrase blue chip prospect. Yarde has got all the skills, he's got all the power. I did mention in my preview show this morning I was very worried about the fact that he had missed weight in the lead up to this fight. I think that's a big threat to his future career, because he's a small guy in terms of height for light heavyweight. If he could no longer make light heavyweight and he had to fight at cruiserweight, he'd be very, very up against it, against some of the monsters in that division. But if he can stay at light heavyweight, he's a very, very highly regarded prospect who will become a top contender. We've just got to see him in a meaningful fight. I mean, Yarde is now at a point where he still hasn't had a meaningful fight in his career to date. Some of his opponents have been very, very questionable. This guy was getting stopped in lower weight classes, so probably not the opponent you'd want for Yarde up at light heavyweight, although I do appreciate, to be fair, that Nemesis was a late-minute replacement, so there's only so much that Team Yarde could do in terms of getting a better opponent. Look, he didn't take the fight with Jose Burton. We've discussed that in the past. I'm not going to discuss that again, but I think a fight of that ilk at that sort of level, just like I've been saying with Daniel Dubois, would provide that education for Anthony Yarde, would ask him those questions, would make him think, would give him the opportunity to learn from a fight. And I think that's absolute key for his professional development. What you don't want is to see guys like that thrown in to a world title fight, and the first time they're asked questions, the first time they have to go around, is at a fight of that magnitude. But that's just my opinion. I want to give a quick shout out to a guy called Zach Parker, who was the first fight on the ITV bill this evening. I actually meant to reference his fight on my Callum Smith video, but I forgot to do so. He fought Luke Blackledge, and he won by first round knockout, which is very impressive if you know how, Luke Blackledge is known as a durable campaigner. I think he went 9 or 10 rounds with Callum Smith. Zach Parker came out. I hadn't actually heard of Parker. He was 12-0 going into the fight. Soundly was outboxing Luke Blackledge over the first 2 minutes. He really caught my attention just from his boxing. He looked like he was landing some real clean punches, throwing from some good angles, some really good timing, and then he absolutely knocked out Luke Blackledge with a big sort of power punch that Blackledge didn't really see coming. He's an exciting guy. I understand that was a British title eliminator. He's a really exciting guy, and I'd be very keen to see him again. Blackledge is a fairly ambitious fight for this stage of his professional career, and the way he took care of business there makes you think that he could potentially be another name to throw into this exciting domestic mix at super middleweight. As could Zach Chelli, who fought at super middleweight, although I believe he may intend on campaigning at middleweight, but he fought on the Frank Warren undercard. Chelli, a bit overeager, a bit too ambitious to try and get his opponent out of there. Adam Jones, very durable campaigner who wasn't going to get stopped for love nor money. Chelli's got a bit of Eubank Jr. about him, very explosive, puts combinations together well, looks like a real athlete, throws punches with bad intent. He's very young. I think he's only 19 years old, quite raw. Lots of improvement needed there, lots of education needed there. But these prospects, very exciting. Obviously, Dubois, Yarde, Chelli on the Box Nation side, they've got other really good prospects as well, the likes of Leon Woodstock, Nathan Gorman. These are guys I'm really excited about. But yeah, Zach Parker, who did so well against Luke Blackledge. also deserves a shout out. So yeah, I mean, look, these fights on the Box Nation card were very uncompetitive. They were essentially squash matches where the much hyped Box Nation prospects went and absolutely battered someone who didn't deserve to be in the same ring as them. And you know, that doesn't always make for the most attractive viewing. It's certainly not what boxing fans like as a 50-50 fight. But nevertheless, it does get you excited for the future. Daniel Dubois, you know, the ceiling looks very high for him right now. Anthony Yarde, the ceiling looks very high for him as well. Zach Chelli and Zach Parker and Chelli also look like guys who I'd be very, very keen to see next time out. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Which one of these prospects is the most exciting to you? How far do you think they can go? Drop your comments in the section below. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you're new to the channel or you haven't done so before, do subscribe. Many thanks for